Earthquakes have rattled cities to rubble, fires have burned them to ashes, and wars have reduced mighty metropolises to utter ruins. But ruined cities don't stay wastelands forever. Because there are so many cities in the world which were completely ruined at one time, but today they have developed themselves again. To find examples of that resiliency, just look back to history. Some of the world's greatest cities were once victims of events that turned them into nothing more than piles of wreckage. Yet even after the worst of destruction, like in Hiroshima where recovery seemed impossible, cities have bounced back, rebuilt from the ground up, and reborn as symbols of modernity and peace. So sit tight, because in today's video, we are going to show you 10 major cities that were completely destroyed and painstakingly rebuilt. But before starting the video, I want to request you, we put our best efforts to create every single video. So please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. Number 10, New Orleans, Louisiana. No city in North America can compete with New Orleans when it comes to culture, food, historic architecture. More than 381,040 people lived in this city in 2023. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the low-lying city of New Orleans. It was one of the deadliest hurricanes in American history. It killed at least 1,800 people in Louisiana and Mississippi, and caused damage worth $125 billion. It was a Category 3 hurricane with winds up to 125 miles per hour and caused the levees in the city to break, which ended up in severe flooding of 80% of the city. Around 400,000 people evacuated from the city and 30,000 took shelter in the Superdome after the city flooded. The levees breaking was a major engineering failure, and the U.S. government was also criticized for the slow response that left the vulnerable communities abandoned. But today New Orleans is a very famous cultural hub in the United States. Number 9, Aceh, Indonesia. Aceh is blessed with natural charms, mesmerizing dance, and tasty food with a total population of more than 4 million. The earthquake and tsunami that rocked the Indian Ocean on Boxing Day of 2004 was one of the deadliest in history. It affected Indonesia, Thailand, India, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, Somalia, and Myanmar, among other countries. More than 220,000 people were killed, and 1.7 million were displaced due to the 9.1 magnitude earthquake and the tsunami that followed. 10 years after the disaster, the World Bank called the rebuilding and recovery of Aceh. At the current time, Aceh is one of the most popular places in Indonesia, and most famous for its religious perspective and tourist attractions. Number 8, Chicago, Illinois. It is the third largest city in the United States. As of 2020, the population is 2,746,388. It is the city with the largest population in the Midwestern United States. But at one time Chicago was completely destroyed. Even today people know this incident by the name of the Great Chicago Fire. When fire spread from a barn in the southwest side of Chicago to the heart of its business district, carried by fierce winds, it destroyed 17,500 buildings and more than 73 miles of streets. An estimated 300 people died, and some 90,000 residents were displaced. But the city was eager to rebuild, enacting new building requirements and beginning the reconstruction process even before architects and engineers completed their plans. In less than 20 years, not only built the world's first skyscraper, but also became a major economic and transportation hub. Number 7, Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage is best known for trails, wildlife, and glaciers, and it is the state's cultural soul as well. The city is home to more artists and musicians than any other place in Alaska. With a population of 291,247 residents, it makes up nearly 2/5 of the state's population. On Good Friday in 1964, the Great Alaskan Earthquake of 9.2 magnitude, the largest in North America. It triggered thousands of aftershocks and landslides and tsunamis that were felt as far as in Oregon and California. It is estimated that 139 people were killed in the aftermath altogether. In Anchorage, there was widespread property damage worth $2.3 billion, and people were stuck without electricity in bitter cold. But the city rebuilt and made it great again. Number 6. San Francisco, California. The city proper is the fourth most populous city in California, with 808,437 residents. The San Francisco Bay Area has among the strongest economies in the world, which attracts talent and infuses an abundance of money in the region. But in 1906, San Francisco woke up to the ground shaking. Then fires engulfed the city and turned buildings to rubble. A major part of the city also built with wood was leveled. It is estimated that around 3,000 people died and 225,000 were injured. Much of the damage was caused by the fires that broke out, so in its rebuilding efforts, the city made a shift from wooden frames to steel and focused on designing structures that could withstand shaking. Now you can see the current San Francisco. Number 5. Beirut, Lebanon. Often called Paris of the Middle East, Beirut is a thriving hotspot for shopping, socializing, and sightseeing, despite many wars and unrest. The city has been rebuilt several times, with modern architecture sharing space with Ottoman and colonial French buildings. In more modern history, Beirut was bombed to rubble during Lebanon's civil war, which lasted 15 years. Downtown Beirut today is a symbol of modernity and luxury, with architecture that attracted foreign investment and boosted its economic recovery. But having been rebuilt by a private company, it also became what the Post describes as a city of exclusion. Historic buildings were torn down not by war, but during the recovery, separating the city from its history. Number 4. Tokyo, Japan. Seeing the bright lights and towering skyscrapers of Tokyo today, you might never have guessed that the city suffered an earthquake and tsunami as devastating as what Tohoku saw in 2011. Just 2 minutes to midnight on September 1, 1923, a 7.9 magnitude earthquake brought on a 40-foot tsunami that, in turn, sparked fires around the city. The flames burned through the wooden houses of the capital city and killed more than 100,000 people in their path. The tragedy spawned an international relief effort that heavily involved the U.S. The recovery effort was anything but smooth. It was rife with violence, disagreement over what the new city should look like, and resentment between the Japanese and American troops who had come to help with relief efforts. Number 3. Lisbon, Portugal. At first glance, Lisbon's got everything you could want from a centuries-old European city, with its winding cobblestone streets and a skyline dotted with medieval castles. The current population of this city is around 548,703. One of the deadliest earthquakes in history struck Lisbon in November 1755, killing between 30,000 and 50,000 people. Lisbon was almost completely destroyed by the shocks and the fires and a tsunami. The damage was extensive, with palaces, buildings, and houses turned to dust and ash, and the newly built opera house also burnt to the ground. In fact, the aftereffects were also felt in social, philosophical, and political spheres of life. The capital that you visit now is another destination that has to be rebuilt. Number 2. Bhuj, India. The most important town of the Kutch region, Bhuj is a fascinating tourist attraction with amazing handicrafts and gigantic palaces that possess an eerie beauty. Moreover, Bhuj is an ideal textile tourism destination and attracts millions of people from across the world. In 2001, Bhuj, a city in the western state of Gujarat, was reduced to rubble by an earthquake of 7.1 magnitude. Around 8,000 villages were ruined, 20,000 were killed, and 400,000 homes were wrecked. In all, it affected around 37.8 million people. What followed was a massive reconstruction and rebuilding effort by the Indian government and supported by financial aid from around the world. Villages were rebuilt, roads were widened, and now the city has become an economic hub. Number 1. London, England. London is a world cultural capital. It is the world's most visited city, as measured by international arrivals. London is the fastest growing city in the world, with a current population of 9,648,000 people. The Great Fire in 1666 engulfed the medieval city of London, which was designed with wooden structures. Started on September 2nd in a bakery, the fire burned for 4 days and consumed 13,200 houses and 87 churches on 400 streets. Winds carried embers, and the fire jumped between areas. The flames were controlled with fire breaks created by blowing up buildings and died down when wind stopped. After the ruination of the city, most new structures were rebuilt in stone and brick. Fortunately, not many people died due to this disaster. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.